Hello, everyone, and welcome to this panel. We're talking about remission today. It's the holy grail of living with RA. And if you look at the ads, you'd think that everyone gets there, but that's not really always the experience for, real people. And the goal of this panel discussion is to show the different paths on the remission journey and share the stories of where we are, what we're experiencing, the barriers, the joys, all of it. Just a quick note, Michael Kuluva was supposed to be part of this, and he's gotten stuck at the doctor's appointment. So we're hoping he'll be able to join us at some point throughout this. But in the meantime, joining me are Cristina Montoya, the arthritis dietitian, and Eileen Davidson from Chronic Eileen, and we are talking all sorts of remission. Oh, and my name is Lena Anderson, but you probably know that if you're on this page. So let's talk about it. So first question is basic, a little introduction, and share where you are in the remission journey, and I'll kind of get us started. I have rheumatoid arthritis, or rather technically juvenile arthritis, but it looks a lot like RA. I'm a writer, an advocate, and I have lived with a RA since I was 4 years old and grew up in the time before effective meds. So I had uncontrolled RA inflammation until fairly recently in my life. And that's why I have a lot of damage. I use a wheelchair, etc. But I got on a biologic in 2005 and went into remission, and I'm still in remission. What about you, Cristina? Where are you?
Well, yeah, so I'm Cristina Montoya. I'm a Colombian mama in Canada. And I had rheumatoid arthritis for half my life now. And so as a dietitian, I empower women to adopt anti-inflammatory lifestyle without restrictions and without telling them that diet is going to cure their disease. Just want to make that clear. And yeah, so I've been living with arthritis since my 2020. I was 2021. And I started taking biologics in maybe about 13 years ago. But by the time I got to the biologics, I already had deformities. Like I arrived a little late when I got into that biologics. It definitely made a difference in my treatment. But I have to be honest, I had never had a discussion about remission with my rheumatologist. They had never raised that or even ask or even say like, are you on remission? Perhaps because recently there was a change in treatment. This is kind of my fourth biologic treatment. So they might maybe think that I haven't hit that mark yet. So I'm still figuring it out.
Eileen?
Hi, everyone. My name is Eileen Davidson. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis about 7 years ago, and it's been a bumpy experience ever since that diagnosis, going through all the different medications. And then also, getting the diagnosis. I ask myself questions like, did I get my diagnosis in time to get the effective treatment that I need to get to remission? And then I also need to ask myself questions like, are my comorbidities like depression and anxiety and fibromyalgia and osteoarthritis preventing me from remission? Just very other much factors in there that I'm still in my journey towards remission and trying to understand how to get there and if I will even get there, because like Lene started off this live Facebook event with, it, not everybody does get there, but how can we get there as close as we can?
Yeah. So and just in those three statements, there are enough for like 17 lives that we could be discussing. But let's dive into just the remission part and sharing your story in more detail. I think for me, I'll go last this time. Eileen, do you want to get into some more detail?
Well, I think one of the most important questions that we can ask our rheumatologists are, what are the things that we can do as a team together to get towards remission. I have an appointment tomorrow with my rheumatologist, and I'm pondering the questions that I need to ask her. And I keep saying to myself, like, well, I guess I need to ask her, how close can I get to remission again? Because before the pandemic, I was really close. But, the pandemic has been hard on many of us, closure of gyms, having to switch from fusion medication to injection forms, the stress of the pandemic, and then also just because chronic illness is bumpy, things happen. It's thrown me off track since the beginning of the pandemic, and so there's been so many changes since that pandemic. Like, what steps do I need to make again to get that close? But it's a conversation that I have to have with my rheumatologist, because I can't do that on my own. And I'm also wondering, are there other providers on my team that can help me with this, like an occupational therapist or a physiotherapist? And then also, I think I still need to learn how to pace myself a bit better. I love to overdo it. And I think that is one of my maybe guilty pleasures or bad habits that keep throwing me back into more pain or fatigue. So it's a balance, trying to figure out where you are with remission, where you can manage your symptoms, and what questions to ask your rheumatologist.
Cristina?
I would like to ask my rheumatologist, what is remission? Does this person really believe that there is remission in rheumatoid arthritis? And how do I achieve it? But also, does that mean that I can go on a drug holiday? Does it mean that if I get into a certain point that or maybe they will reduce the medications? And I would also like to know, because in their experience, have they, especially because there's so many influencers and everything they're writing, in your experience, have you seen any lifestyle changes that will continue that remission? Or you still need that some kind of level of medication? I just still feel very green and very skeptical, to be honest, after being on medications for so many years.
So I think these are all really great examples of questions we can ask, but I also think there is some value in hearing a bit about your personal journey. And Cristina, you talked about never meeting a rheumatologist who actually said the R word. And how do you think that affected you, like in terms of becoming an advocate and being more involved in your treatment? Do you think that sort of created a passivity?
I think after even interacting with you or Eileen, or attending the rheumatology conferences, I like to talk about the R word. It gives me hope. I feel like remission, it gives me that hope that I really haven't had for so many years. And it's something to look forward to, not just to kind of even in pain. And it was, my recent experience with even the changes in therapy, which I was very scared to, was to try biosimilars. And again, it was about that misunderstanding about these drugs. And it has been a very good, very effective medication to keep my pain levels under control, my inflammation levels under control. It took about 2-3 months to really feel the full effects. Then I'm thinking, okay, is this leading me to the remission? And it not only is like the two questions, is the remission journey, but also kind of getting over that fear of trying a new treatment like biosimilars.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think you're right. Like, there's nothing quite like that. It takes a lot of guts to try something new, and kudos to all of us for having done that. What about you, Eileen? You said that it sounded like you went through several years before you found pre-pandemic, before you found something that worked, but then changing the method of application for the medication admit that there were changes in your health?
Yeah, I guess winding back to my treatment history is, and a little bit about the Canadian medication system is, we have to try the cheaper drugs first. And I remember when I stepped foot in my rheumatologist's office, she said, these drugs aren't going to work for you, but we need to get through this year because of the Canadian guidelines. She basically knew I needed biologics. So unfortunately, there was a step there missed for getting me fast and effective treatment due to guidelines. But once I did start biologics, that's when I started to notice an actual difference in my disease. But it did take a few biologics till I found one that would actually work for me with minimal side effects and also fit my life. So you can take these biologics different ways, from weekly injections, bi-weekly injections, to once a month or once every 6 weeks. There's all different ones. So it's finding that one that I felt comfortable with and where I could get it, and asking my rheumatologist her honest opinion about which drug she would be most effective with me, plus also making the decision myself with her, shared decision making. And so we went on Actemra, or biologic, but one thing is, at the same time, I started to change my lifestyle. So I started to eat healthier, and I started to exercise, and I started to focus on other aspects of rheumatoid arthritis, like the mental health component. And that's when I felt like everything started to make sense, and I started to get towards steps of feeling better. However, with the pandemic, that is when I had to go from monthly infusions, which were now closed due to potential spread of the pandemic, to being doing self-injections. And unfortunately, there is a difference between these drugs, is because not everyone has the same disease or same disease activity. We all kind of take drugs and things differently when it comes to RA. And so the self-injection form was not strong enough for me, and that flew me into a flare. And also because there was a halt where I couldn't get my medications for a while. So even something that simple can throw us off. And it's a juggling experience, trying to make sure that you have your medication on time and nothing happens in life to stop you from getting your medications. And that's especially been scary since the COVID-19 pandemic, because if we do get sick with the virus, then we have to pause our medications. And that is something that we have to deal with on top of COVID-19. We have to deal with the RA flare. So I guess my journey with the medications has been from completely scared of them to having a lot of faith in them, but also questioning if I am going to be effectively treated in my lifetime.
Well, and I think if you're looking at my story, like I said, I had most of my life, the best treatment. I had started on aspirin, and we all know how well or not well that works. And on top of that, then you're dealing with, I think I still remember when I first got an NSAID, when that first was approved. And that was a huge step up from an aspirin. But it wasn't until I had I call it my big flare with capital B and capital F in 2004, and it just ate my life. Oh, kitties. Sorry, I get very easily distracted. And it just meant that I had to wait at the time 8 months for funding, because it's so expensive. And in the meantime, RA just ate my life. I was left completely debilitated. I was suicidal, because that was my only way out to make the pain stop, which is not good. And then I got my biologic, and it worked, and I was really lucky. But it's also, some people experience the ability to back off their medication once you get into remission, to kind of minimize the medication you take. And I can't. Like, I stop my medication, 3 weeks later my RA starts coming back. So I know that for me, medication is definitely my friend. And it's something I'll be on for the rest of my life, and I just hope it keeps working. So we're also going to talk about other components. Medication is just one part of the picture and can be a vital part of the picture, but medication alone is unlikely to change your life significantly. There are a lot of things you can do to kind of regain a sense of control, and we're going to talk about two of them: uh, lifestyle changes and mental health. So let's pick lifestyle changes first. Um, Other than the medication, what are some of the lifestyle changes you use to support your body, and what, if any, positive effect does it have on your RA? And I think since Eileen already mentioned some of that, we'll circle back to that. You mentioned things like exercise is important for you.
Yeah, so before my diagnosis with RA, I always kind of wanted to exercise, but whenever I tried to, it hurt. I obviously didn't know why it hurt, and I was trying to exercise like a normal able-bodied person, which isn't always easy to do when you have RA, especially active, undiagnosed RA. So there was a lot of self-blame there for a while, you know, when I had my diagnosis and also when I was trying to exercise but couldn't. But participating in research and seeing physiotherapists and also talking to other RA patients about what exercise works for them has helped me tremendously. Learning how to exercise, pace myself, what exercises are safe for me, how to do these exercises safely, and then also how to track those symptoms and watch and see physical proof that that exercise was really helping me along with my medications. Not only did that help, but it also helped with my mental health. It inspired me to eat healthier. I ended up losing a lot of weight. And then I have a young son who also was inspired to be more healthy and active as well. So it really did actually change my life, especially as somebody living with arthritis. It can be a challenge. Not every day is the same. I can't do the same exercises every day. Some days I'm just too busy, too fatigued, or I just have a zero motivation, which can happen on, you know, certain days, especially the rainy days. So yeah, it's finding what exercises I enjoy doing, knowing that when I'm feeling really bad, that a little bit of movement will actually help me feel better. And then making sure that I have the equipment and good shoes that I need to exercise, because there's so many little things that can make exercise uncomfortable with RA. So having the wrong shoes is not right. Even like clothing that is like too tight or restrictive can be uncomfortable, or even exercising near people who don't understand that you have a disability or going to a class that claims it's you know, for everybody, all abilities is usually not. So it's just, you know, finding the right environment as well.
Christina, what are some of the lifestyle changes you use? And somehow, being a dietitian, I suspect it might involve food.
Yeah, well, it definitely does. And after like working with my clients and my own experience, I kind of compiled 5 pillars of lifestyle changes. So I placed like anti-inflammatory way of eating, right? Like it's rooted on the Mediterranean diet and adding all these kind of goodness and herbs and spices and all that great stuff. Then I have like a, try to less exposure to toxins or even environment, or if there's a lot of heat, right? Like in the summer we just had, we know when heat can also kind of trigger a flare up. So even those little things, kind of taking care of yourself. Um, Physical activity definitely. And I've been very lucky that I love the Zumba, and the Zumba instructors know about my condition and they always know how to modify my. So they, in fact, that when they see me jumping out too much or moving my hips too much, they're like, calm down, little Colombian. Okay, so I've been lucky about that. In that pillar, also, I think about like relaxation techniques. Then we have, then the next one I have is quality sleep. I think I'm really working on like a sleep hygiene, setting that time, and it helps me to have like my toddler. I have to go to sleep with him, and it kind of works out and get up at the same time in the morning. And the last one is like having or setting those healthy relationships, really reaching out to people who really kind of brightens up your day, or the ones who understand your condition. But I think the most important relationship that I was failing at was with myself. I think I wasn't really loving myself as much and showing my like self-compassion. And that's the lifestyle pillar that I'm kind of working at this moment.
Mhm. Just a reminder before I start talking about my lifestyle changes is if you have any questions, even after we were live, please leave them in the comments and I'll get to them afterwards. I think in terms of lifestyle changes, I have to admit for me, food never affected it. Changing how I eat never affected my RA in a good or bad. I don't seem to have trigger foods except too much fried food, and I don't have other kinds of food don't help or hinder my RA. For me, it's medication, but I also know that the RA part of me lives in a body, and that body needs to be supported to be as healthy as possible. So I try to eat as healthy as possible. That means I'm actually about 50% plant based, which makes me feel better. I try to cut down on sugar as much as possible. But for things like my pain and my fatigue, one of my really important things is my daily nap. That without that, I would be a mess. So I treat that as absolutely sacred. And I'm lucky in the sense that any work I do from home. So it's so I can work around my nap. And that makes a huge difference. I am also getting better at pacing myself, believe it or not. I spend my entire life looking at the list rather and than at my body. And took a while before I learned that maybe it's not that I can't keep up with the things on my list, but maybe it's that the list is too long. So I'm starting to pay more attention to how I feel, and that guides what I do. And that was a hard one lesson. It took decades. And that's sort of my main things. But I think, like Christina said, also the importance of finding other people like you, other people in the RA community. I think um, laughing every day
Mhm.
is really important. And I think just having just being aware that my body is not my enemy, my body is my friend in this, because it's my body that gets me through. And that's some of it is it's a change in perspective, I think. So let's talk about just want to say hi to Susie, who is out there in the comments. And just a reminder, any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. But let's talk about mental health, because I think a lot of us in the community have have realized some interesting things about the effects of mental health, about how that supports or not RA, especially in the last 2 years. Do you want to talk about that, Christina?
Oh, I grew up in a country, or I guess in a culture, that you even had to take a cold shower to show that you were healthy. So any pain is just really no matter, like a just pain is a show is a sign of weakness, right? So even when you start taking warm showers, like come on, you're sick. So when you grow up in a culture like that, thinking that you had some mental health issues, they immediately think you need to go to like a madhouse or go to a clinic. So you pretty much don't even talk about it. There's never really talk about it. And even so then in your culture, myself, I think it doesn't matter. You just suck it up, buttercup. Keep going, right? That's your life, and you live with the pain and push through. But then I got to a point that I had a breakdown after 20 years, and even more like more added traumas in my life. I just got to the breaking point. And I just sharing this kind of for the first time. I was hospitalized in a mental health unit, and that was an aha moment for me,
Mhm.
where and a wake up call, where I realized that even though I'm doing everything right, doing nutrition, active physical activity, setting out times, I was not taking care of my mental health the way I did. It was more kind of praising, and you have to take care of that part. But I really didn't internalize that until very recently. And so now I'm not so ashamed to talk. And you see, it's like just feel that stigma
Mhm.
that it feels like even I felt it at home that my own family, not because they don't care about me, it's because it's so heavy that they haven't asked me yet how I feel.
Mhm.
And so if it wasn't for the support like you, Eileen, and so many others, even through like my Instagram account and few that I shared, and it's so much love that I see. And then when they say, yeah, me too. Oh my God, I had to take care of this. So at this point, I realized here, living Durham region in Ontario, and so they told me that if I ever kind of get to a breaking point, right, like I just needs to clear my mind, get like myself out of the environment. There are 3 respite homes in Durham region where you can stay there for up to 3 to 4 days if you need to take a break from like the world. I said,
I had
really?
no idea.
I was like, what? I didn't know that. I said, you don't have to be hospitalized. You can reach out to the Durham mental health services, and then we can kind of help you get into the program, obviously, right? Like availability. But I thought that was really neat
Mhm.
because that's what I felt at the hospital. I didn't feel like I was treated like I was like a psychopath or something, because I think that's the stigma. But it was more allowing me that space to reflect, to kind of go on my own pace, didn't think about work, didn't think about anything really, just my boy. That's like he was the only one I just could think about. So then after that, I was connected with the Durham Mental Health Services, and they gave me a whole list of services that they were available, workshops, skill sets, even a counselor that you can talk and meet at a coffee place on one-on-one for an hour or something like that, 24/7, like a crisis helpline. And I felt maybe this was my learning experience as a learning curve to get to know and help even my clients and say, you see, like this is what you have available. Don't fall into that dark hole. Let us ask for help. You just ask, we have to ask for help.
I think you're absolutely right. And just to mess with the system, I'm gonna go now, and then we'll get to Eileen's mental health. And I think in my condition has always been treated as a physical condition. I think no doctor has ever talked to me about the mental health aspect, and I learned a long time ago, like, well, I used to advocate for, if you're new to RA, get yourself a therapist or counseling or a social worker who can help you adjust. But I never thought about the impact on me because I've lived with it so long, so I can cope, right? Well, wrong. And I learned that, number one, 6 years ago when I was in the ICU with complications from the flu, and was on a ventilator and ended up having medical PTSD, which is definitely chronic and something I need to manage just as much as I manage my physical health. But I have also learned in the last 2 years, through the stress of the pandemic and being immunosuppressed in a global pandemic, has been very scary, especially with the ICU memories, because I know what it's like to be on a ventilator and it's not good, or have a tracheostomy. Never want to go there again, but also just, and I figured that was hard, but I didn't know how profound an effect it can have on your physical health. Because one of the things I found out, pre-pandemic, I could work and write and do things for a certain number of hours. It was always much less than an able-bodied person, but I could. And then it took a while because I'm dense. And I figured out that somewhere along the line, I've lost about a third of my energy, and my ability to work. And it's due to anxiety and depression that was associated with the pandemic. So I got a therapist who is helping, but it's definitely ongoing long-term work to figure out how to manage my mental health when I was never taught to, and I was never taught how much a part of my disease management it is. It's just simply not mentioned anywhere. So it was something I had to learn myself, and turns out that therapy is indeed helpful in the beginning, but also throughout. And I think it's something we need to talk about more, that the mental health aspect of chronic illness. What are your thoughts, Eileen?
Well, I can definitely relate to a lot of what both of you have said, having RA and also mental health. I was diagnosed with clinical depression when I was 17 years old by my then family physician. And instead of, a treatment plan or telling me that this, wasn't my fault, she told me to lose 10 pounds. I would feel better. And
Sorry.
so, yeah.
Oh,
Oh
I
my God.
carried that for years, thinking that I was, it was all in my head. I was just being dramatic because I didn't like the way I looked or I didn't like my weight. If I was prettier, then I wouldn't be depressed, blah, 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 blah. And I also came from a family that didn't want you talking about your mental health, or at least one half of my family. And so I was always told to keep it in because otherwise I would get told I was crazy, or I'm just a psycho B word kind of thing like that. You know how a lot of men like to call us when we express our emotions?
mm,
Actually, not just men, too, people. And so I learned for a long time to kind of suppress my emotions. But when I started to feel sick, and obviously something was wrong with me, my body was being overcome with inflammation, as I call it. That's when my mental health was at its absolute worst. And, I was angry, I was bitter, I was impulsive and destructive, and I burned relationships. I was very suicidal. I went pretty much a decade with me having suicidal thoughts every day. However, when I got my RA diagnosis, and I started to learn to live a healthier life, to not blame myself, and to openly talk about my struggles, connect with others who had similar struggles, and to no longer kind of feel the shame for the way I was feeling, really helped me stop a lot of those very extreme hurtful thoughts,
mm,
and then finding healthy habits and paths like advocacy, writing, and volunteering has given me a lot of purpose and hope, and made new friends, and then also reaching out to a therapist, getting on finding the medications to help with my anxiety and depression has significantly helped. And I also want to talk about inflammation, because I say when my body was being overtaken by inflammation, my mental health is the absolute worst when I am in a flare and my inflammation is high. And it can be nothing actually going wrong in my life, but my head will tell me everything is wrong in my life.
oh yeah,
Maybe it's
absolutely.
because I'm stressed out because I can't keep up with what I need to do, especially as a single mother. Or maybe it's my hormones are also a culprit. I will say that for about a week before I menstruate, my pain and my mental health are not pretty.
No.
So yeah, it's just I can look back to when I was that 17-year-old girl in the doctor's office. That's actually 20 years ago now. I look and I feel like RA was my answer to telling me that I needed to take care of myself and stop blaming myself for everything that was wrong with me, because depression and RA and a whole bunch of illnesses actually run in my family. And I was not given healthy lifestyle skills growing up, with a very busy working father and a mother who was more along the neglectful and abusive side. So that contributed a lot of trauma in my life and in my younger years. So I developed bad habits, and I couldn't be who I really needed to be. And so I can thank RA to helping me actually express myself and become a better person and a happier person.
No, I think I can connect to that, and I think a lot of people can, because I don't think anybody really learns how to take care of themselves and how to set boundaries. Like, didn't know what a boundary was. I had to look it up, So I think RA can be a nudge to actually learn how to set boundaries and take care of yourself, and to realize that if you feel sad all the time, that there is help. Like, RA can make you feel very sad, and there can be a lot to feel sad about, but it's also a sign of depression. And I think some really valuable lessons here. I want to kind of circle back to remission, because we talked about the different aspects of it, but in terms of having those conversations, and we're all taking part in the Talk Over RA project again this year, which is excellent. I will pop a link in the description box for this live, because I didn't have the link until yesterday, so it will be there as soon as as we're done, for some great resources to understand your condition and kind of guide the discussion with your doctor. But let's talk about how to talk to your doctor about those goals for remissions and your life, and how that can support your ability to live your life the way you want to. And for me, that Talk Over RA website, especially the discussion guide, is so wonderful, because the discussion guide allows me to summarize my issues, like take some time, sit down, put it all on paper, and connect it to my goals. And that means that I give a copy to my doctor. I keep one copy, and it's like setting an agenda for a meeting. And it kind of is a natural guide to self-advocacy, because guess what? The person who sets the agenda is the one who leads the meeting. So it helps you kind of take more control. Do you use the discussion guide, or what are some of the tricks you use to have a conversation with your doctor to make sure that your goals are first and foremost?
I use it. I actually find it very helpful. Like, when I don't bring my RA guide, I feel kind of lost. And so, what am I supposed to ask? So, because you only have this 20 minutes, right? Tops. So I definitely bring that in. And in case I forget, I tend to have a summary on my phone, or like the notes. And I use like a face sheet. So I actually have all my diagnoses there and everything. Probably not a good idea when it comes to like privacy, but when you go to the ER on a flare up and everybody started asking you, what medications are you on? Art? So I go look at my phone.
I do the same. Yeah.
So those are the kind of strategies that I use to kind of keep everything now. It would help me to get the treatment that I need.
Eileen?
Yeah, so tomorrow I have an appointment in person with my rheumatologist, and what I particularly really like about the Talk Over RA forum is it helps keep on track, because living with RA can cause a lot of brain fog, so I may forget an important question, and it's also a way for me to break the ice for taboo topics or difficult to kind of talk to topics, maybe with a person you don't actually really know that well, particularly sexual health may be one that you can put on the list. And how I do that is I fill out the form and I put the form down between me and my rheumatologist, and therefore she can see what exactly I'm interested in talking about this meeting. And it also, because like my rheumatologist, I do now have a very good relationship, and because I am so active in the arthritis community, sometimes it can get us a little off topic, so it will keep us going back to the topic, and help kind of prevent things from being missed. I've known that times we've been getting too much into conversation that a referral was forgot to be properly placed, where this is, I can go back and I can say, was this done? Was this done before I leave the appointment? Because, we're women, we get chatty. and I value those conversations so much. And rheumatologists are human; they may make a mistake, so it's just a good way to keep on track. To summarize my thoughts, and I have that appointment tomorrow. I will be posting about my questions and what I'm going to be doing on my social media channels, Chronic Eileen, and it's helped me realize something. Before the form, I never ever thought about what are my treatment goals. I was just kind of like, let's see where treatment gets me, but I never realized that I can own those goals.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And that reminded me, because might help to have people's names up there. Let's talk about Rainforest, shall we? So I need a checklist to myself. Put people's name on screen. But given that we are starting to wrap up, we don't have any questions at the moment. So if anyone watching, even after we were live, have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. So we have an exciting month planned. So let's share where can people find you to kind of keep track of what you're doing. I believe it's every Wednesday we have something exciting planned. You guys know where to find me. I'm going live the next 2 Wednesdays, and these lovely ladies are coming back on the 21st. And I have a post, and it'll all be shared. But tell people where they can find you and a little bit about what you have planned.
Cool.
Cristina?
Well, this year I actually been thinking a lot about Eileen, and she said, Christina, I want to see you dance. And because I just had that depression telling me, no, it's so boring, I cannot do it and everything. But then Eileen says on my head, I said, like, no, I gotta get back on that. So I'm not doing like something really extravagant. I'm mostly doing some reels and trying to provide some education from my perspective. Planning to do some lives, and then at the end of the month, I will participate in Eileen's Summit, which is I'm really excited about too. So please tell us about it.
Over to you, Eileen.
Well, I'm taking a bite off of my biggest advocacy job yet, and I'm hosting a webinar along with you two lovely ladies and some of the researchers / clinicians from Arthritis Research Canada. I have on board a rheumatologist, a psychologist, a physiotherapist, and an occupational therapist. I hand selected them, knowing them because I've participated in the research or have seen them
in action.
Present their research, and I have also hand selected them because as somebody living with rheumatoid arthritis, I believe those 4 aspects of healthcare are incredibly crucial to living well with RA, and also understanding remission, how close you can get there, how to get there, what may prevent you from remission, how to have that better conversation with your rheumatologist, and also just understand what does living well with RA look like, because not everybody will get to remission, but what does living well, what does minimal symptoms look like? And it's going to be a very interactive webinar, so there will be little movement breaks because it is a little bit on the longer side. However, there will be movement breaks for people to take a break. It will be recorded so people can watch it later. There will also be a summary of notes so that you do not have to take notes, so you can sit back and relax. And there's also one really exciting giveaway to one person who attends the webinar with over $500 worth of swag designed by us arthritis patients. Now, it's not just limited to those who are Canadian. This information can be provided great for anybody with any form of inflammatory arthritis or even chronic illness to have that conversation with their doctor or better understand what things like occupational therapy or mental health and physiotherapy, tracking your symptoms, can benefit your illness. Plus, also you get to hear from patients. And yeah, I don't know what else to say otherwise than please register. Wednesday, September 28th at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Now that is 2 p.m. in the Eastern time zone and 7 p.m. for those who are in the UK, because I tried to pick at a time where everybody could attend.
Okay. And I will be sharing this throughout the month as well. So keep an eye on everybody's channel. So just a reminder, where can people find you? Where are you most active? Like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and what's your handle? And I will attempt to write. Can I write it? I probably can, but do I know how? Hang on. I did. Okay, you know what? After we're live, I'm going to ask you guys to put your handles in the comments, because that keeps me from looking even more like an idiot on live. So, there we go. Anyway, thank you so much. I look forward to all the exciting things we have planned. And thank you, everyone, for watching.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I spelled that wrong. I'm found at Chronic Eileen, whether that be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or chroniceileen.com. And that is also where registration, which just opened today for the webinar, is.
Okay. Do you want to, I think with you, Cristina, basically you look up arthritis dietitian and you can find you?
Yes, although my website's gonna go offline for a few weeks. But you know what? You can find me, Cristina Montoya, arthritis dietitian, also on Instagram, probably mostly these days.
Yeah.
So I can share that.
Sounds great. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.